Welcome to In the Cool of the Day, and I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Sharon Anderson, and this is your segment from Behind the Podium, Conversations about Law and Faith. And we have an exciting show for you today. With me is a phenomenal woman of God, Lady Darlene Hart, the First Lady of the Christian Tabernacle Church of God in Washington, D.C. And Lady Hart is the author of a tremendous book called Behind the Makeup: 7 Testimonies, 7 Women, 7 Principles, Authentic Life. And she is the collaborator of that book, as well as a second series, which is Behind the Makeup of a Leading Lady, also the collaborator, and it's called The Next Chapter, A New Message and a New Voice. Thank you, Lady Hart, for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
As you know, on From Behind the Podium, we discuss issues of law and faith and how they intersect, and issues of domestic violence, issues of overcoming challenges in your marriage, in your home, in your family is so important for us to focus on. This is the month of Black History, but this is also the month of love, Valentine's Day. And so for this segment, I thought we would talk to Lady Hart about her testimony, because I believe that whoever's watching today will be encouraged and empowered to get through some tough times that these times can bring us when we're celebrating Valentine's and we're trying to overcome the trials and the tribulations that come when we have a call in our life.
Absolutely.
What's also significant is that Lady Hart is a pastor's wife, and she's a minister, and we all know that when we're called to preach and when we have a call on our life, we also go through some things that catapults us to our next level. And while the enemy is trying to prevent us from getting to our destiny, God has a plan that allows us to get through whatever it is that comes our way. So I really thank you for being here on my show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me, why Behind the Makeup?
Well, it is really a testimony, sort of a blueprint for people of faith to follow. And not just those that go to church every Sunday and read their Bible consistently, but for women as a whole, because we all need something to look at as an example. And we often think that people who look like they have themselves together, maybe they have a nice home, a nice marriage, drive a nice car. We often think that those people, because of material possessions, often have a better lifestyle. When that's absolutely not the truth. And so we don't often look behind what they are really dealing with. You know, behind that material stuff or that nice outfit and pretty face. And so Behind the Makeup was really just my testimony of having been out in the world and people not really seeing me. They looked past me and looked at the pastor's wife, looking at our 5 children and looking at what we portray in the church. And not necessarily what's going on with us. So that's where it came from.
Right, and for women it's difficult because we have so much to bear. In our everyday life. Like you said, we're wives, we have our own businesses, we have our own jobs, we have to raise children, and oftentimes when we go to church, we don't even have an opportunity to enjoy the message ourselves because we're so used to having to put on that face, like you said, that makeup in order to put up a front, just so that we can survive. Is that what you experienced?
Yes, absolutely. Not just because I was the pastor's wife, because I had been in ministry for several years before my husband became pastor. And so when you have a title or you are a person of leadership, people tend to look to you for advice and counsel. And so you shouldn't have any problems. You shouldn't really be going through anything because you have this title. And so you look at your boss at work, maybe a CEO, the vice president, and they're running this big organization or this big corporation, and they are looked upon for all of the wisdom and all of the advice, and you find out that either he's an alcoholic or his wife has, you know, a sickness or illness. And so when you show your weaknesses, your scars, so to speak, people tend to blame you. They tend to say, oh, it's something you're doing wrong. And so we have to usually clam up and just pretend like we have it all together.
And then as leaders, that's why the divorce rates are so high.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there are higher incidents of alcoholism. That's why there are higher instances of drug addiction, because we as leaders don't have that outlet oftentimes to be able to just, as we say, take off the makeup and say, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm experiencing, because we don't feel that there's a safe place. And while we know, when we were preparing for this, we talked about, while we know that God is our all in all, and He really is the only one that can fix it, oftentimes as leaders, we definitely need to have that outlet. And as particularly leaders in the church, because we have to listen to others, and because we know that others sometimes judge us, if we make a mistake, we really do have to hide in that environment, because if it's let out, then maybe we won't be looked at as that pillar of strength that people need when they come into the ministry. Is that what you've experienced?
Absolutely. And you often think about church, for example. That's the place that has always been a pivotal place in the community to go to in times of trouble.
Yes.
And when they take that place from you, you really have nothing to go to.
Yes.
And you need people. God put people here for a reason. We need each other. And so when people use that term, I don't need anybody but the Lord, it's completely false, because you need people to survive in this world. And so when you put me on a pedestal and I have no one to reach to, then I'm not able to get the assistance that I need. When leaders need leaders, just like pastors need pastors and counselors need counselors. Because we all need somebody that we can go to and share and talk and scream, cry, holler, and say, this is who I really am, and these are the things that I'm really going through. So give me some assistance,
Absolutely, absolutely. And we know that the word says that we are overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the power of our testimony. So releasing it gives us strength. It gives us power. It's the clamming up and it's the keeping it in that causes that powder keg. And then we snap, and then we do things and we say things that actually could get us in trouble or make it worse. And I think you have a testimony about that, don't you?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, you do.
Which is the place where Behind the Makeup was birthed.
Yes.
Because of my incident with my husband. He suffered from drugs and alcohol for many years, and so I spent all of my energy and everything I had to helping him get healthy and him get clean. And in the process, I was damaged. I was hurt. I was scarred. And there was AA. He had something he could go to. There was nothing for the family. There was nothing for other than regular counseling. But in certain communities, counseling was frowned upon. So it was always go to the church and pray and fast and do all of these things. And I found out that there was residue. Even though we were giving up certain things and we were praying and we were releasing it, there was still something left on the inside of me that had not been healed. And it was in a place that even I didn't think you think I forgave him. He's good now. He's home. He's paying bills. He's taking care of the kids. He's meeting the needs that I thought. But there was a place that he could not reach me. And I really needed God to heal me in that place. And I didn't even recognize how deep that wound had gone. And so I was able to gain clarity after my husband and I had a very big domestic violence incident, and I wound up in jail. And so people were thinking, wow, your husband didn't go, you went to jail. And it was just something for me that was very humbling. It was very strategic on God's half, because He was able to get me isolated enough that I was able to focus on Him and really seek Him, really try to hear what He had to say to me.
So it sounds like through the initial experience when you were dealing with your husband battling with drug addiction, you were not really taking care of you. You were going through the motions. And as a result of you going through the motions, as you said, there was this residue left. So even if he was in AA and in recovery, the healing from the hurt and the anger had not occurred. And what I also think I hear is that you were still going to church.
Oh, yes.
Right? And of course you were still praying.
Absolutely.
But you really hadn't taken that time for self-reflection and self-help so that you could get beyond it. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes. And we often believe that we do that. We actually believe that we are doing that through prayer.
Yes.
And then some churches believe that if you lay on the floor and you scream and you holler and you cry,
Yes.
that you've poured it all out before the Lord. And it's when you get up, you're healed. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. I gave it to God and it's all right.
Yes.
I gave it to him, but there's still work to do.
Yes.
And so it was a myth for me that I'm going in here and I'm doing these rituals, so to speak.
Right.
And that's not really what helps you. What helps you is really doing the things, the work. You have to really do the work. So what is it that I was hiding? What was it that I had even hidden from myself?
Sure.
I truly hadn't forgiven him. I truly was very bitter and very angry behind everything that had happened. You know, I could remember conversations that we had while he was really under the spirit of that drug or that alcohol. And while he didn't know what he was saying,
sure, you remember.
I knew. Because I wasn't I wasn't under any influence. And so I carried that. And it was damaging. It was the holes that were left that we thought we had filled in with prayer, and we thought we filled in with fasting. And we sat down. His father was the pastor, so it was very difficult to get clear answers from him because he was giving it to me from a loving heart, but also from a caring heart for his son. So now it was absolutely. So then you get other people that came in and they tried to give you some answers, and so you really just never got the truth. You never found out what the truth was. And they'll say, you better let go of that hurt and that anger. But it really wasn't just like a magic wand.
It's not poof.
It doesn't just disappear. It's work to be done.
And I wanted women to hear that. It was so important for you to come on this show to talk about that, because all too often we as women and we as leaders, and particularly women in the church, we feel that we've failed. Or maybe my relationship with God isn't as close as I thought, because I prayed, I went to church, I laid on the floor, I cried, but I go home and I'm still left with these feelings. And what do I do? And we say counseling, is a bad word. That's a C word in the church, because if you have to go to counseling, then you must not really be saved, or you must not really be filled with the Holy Ghost, because you haven't just given it to God. But it's not that easy, is it?
It's not that easy. And counseling is not an easy thing to do, because you have to first admit that you need some more help. And not necessarily there are saved counselors.
Absolutely.
Every one of them don't attend your church.
Absolutely.
And we look for those people to give us guidance right in that same place that we've been wounded, that same place that we've been hurt. And it wasn't until I went to work and I really started to review some of the things that were going on in our community, as far as depression was concerned, suicide was concerned, and all of these things just started to really hound me. Like, I couldn't get any rest. It was almost like something I had to do. I had to seek it out. And it was really God's way of just showing me that these are the paths that other people go down. They feel like they're hopeless. When you lose hope, you really have nothing. You feel like there's nothing you can do.
That's right.
And so it was like, these are the alternatives. They thought they couldn't find any. So do you want to go get this help? Or you want to do these alternatives? You want to go down the depression road, suicidal, medication? What do you want out of this? Or do you want to humble yourself and just say, it's me, Lord. I need more help.
I need some more help.
More help.
And that doesn't mean that God isn't there. That doesn't mean that our prayer life isn't even stronger. It doesn't mean that we don't seek even a deeper relationship with God in the process. But sometimes we do need that little help. And what we want to tell leaders today, it's okay.
It's okay.
What we want to tell women today, it's okay.
Absolutely.
If you need that extra help. And sometimes it is important to go outside of the ministry where in the church that you attend, because you do feel a little safer, and can actually pour out those feelings and thoughts and ideas that you might be afraid to spill out in the church setting where you attend every week or almost every day. Absolutely. So why did you decide to collaborate with other women and bring in the different women and their testimonies? Because your book, I love the first book and the title, 7 Women, 7 Testimonies, 7 Principles, Authentic Life. So was 7 significant for you? How did God lead you to that title and those women?
Well, I'm a visual person, and I'm also somebody that I get clarity when I talk.
Yes, yes.
You know, so I can. I initially didn't have 7 women.
Okay.
I had about 10 women, and I thought, okay, the more stories. I wanted. God began showing me pictures and images of women who looked like they had it all together.
Yes, yes.
They had the nice car. They had the husband on their arm.
Yes.
Every marriage isn't happy. I know that.
Yes.
I didn't need an image to tell me that.
Sure.
But it was just crucial that I looked at other people
I see.
and see that that looks perfect. And I started putting all of these pictures on my screen, and I looked at each one of them with the nice car, the nice house, sort of keeping up with the Jones type thing. And everybody looked like they had it all together. And if you look at some of the images, they were celebrities. And if you know their backdrop, you know that their life was messy behind all of that.
Absolutely.
And it was so interesting that God began to show me that there were other leaders that had gone through their own tests, their own trials.
Yes.
And it was time for them to share that story and be able to truly help other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Really help other
Absolutely.
people.
The transparency is critical.
It's very
And because
critical.
if you keep on the mask, you're only going so far. And truly what I found as a pastor, and I have a doctorate in pastoral counseling, that if I start ministering to you or counseling you, you know that I have the mask on. So you can tell that I'm only going but so far when I'm trying to help you. And so I think the transparency is so important, and I applaud you because it's not easy. It's not easy to stand or even sit here today and say, I went to jail for something that I did because I snapped and I kept it all in. But I was a first lady. I grew up in church and never thought that moment would have occurred because of my background, but it was because you had kept a lot bottled up inside.
And it was like an explosion.
Yes, yeah. So I'd like you to share with us about that moment when you were in the jail cell. You were telling me, when they did arrest you, you were in the jail cell, and how pivotal that moment was for you, because it could have gone either way, right? It could have taken you further down into an abyss of depression, but actually that was what opened up all of this for you. And you never look back. So tell us about that moment, because it's so important for the listeners.
It really
to hear
is. For me, it was every step, every moment was almost like I was outside of my body watching it happen. And I could see everything that, I used to be an armed guard, and I used to fingerprint people.
Okay.
And now here I am being fingerprinted, and I could feel everything. I could feel him holding my hand, rolling my finger. I could feel them moving me to take the picture for the files. Everything was standing out to me. There was not one piece of that day that I can't still remember. And God allowed me to experience it in such a way that I would really address every issue of who I was, everything in my life that I had hidden. I grew up military, and as a result of that, I was around a lot of different races. So we were almost the only black family, I would say, that hung in my parents' circle. And so that was kind of hard. We rented our home from a Caucasian man, and he would come and he would check on us, and he would treat us very poorly. And so I had very bad experiences with women with Caucasian women. Very bad experiences. And I thought, wow, I'm never going to be able to get along with this group of people. And when I got locked up in this jail cell, there was a Caucasian woman sitting in there, and the whole time she called me nigger.
Oh, wow.
The entire time she tried to order me around and tell me to do things. And even in that, I saw that was God showing me all of the places in my life that I had not addressed.
Yes.
All of the places that I work in the federal government. So I have to deal with every race of people. How do I treat them?
Correct.
What is it that I do? What energy do I give off that would make them feel standoffish? So is it them or is it really me?
It's forcing you. It forces you to look at you. It forces you to look
outwardly.
at you.
So the Bible says first take the speck out of your own eye before you try to take it out of someone else's. And what I would do is always say, well, Caucasian women just don't like me.
Yes.
And it was the furthest thing from the truth.
Right.
I had put all of them in one basket.
Yes.
And so now I'm forced to now look at this woman.
Yes.
Even though she's calling me the worst names in the book, I still had to now look at her in loving kindness.
Yes. Yes.
And I had to now look past what she was hurt. She was damaged.
Right. Sure.
She was on drugs. She was on alcohol. And she was now lashing out at me from the only place she knew to lash out.
That's it.
And so I couldn't even address that. So I just was quiet.
Yeah.
I would make phone calls. The phone call, when you pick up the phone, it calls you an inmate.
Oh, right.
Inmate is on the phone and they don't say your name.
Yes.
I'm thinking, who is this inmate? They keep, calling.
Referring to.
Who is this?
Right.
That's not who I am.
Sure.
I'm not an inmate.
Sure.
And so that was what God was showing me was it's easy in a snap. You could be here.
Right.
This could be your lifestyle. And I was facing 25 years.
Wow.
That was the minimum that they could have given me.
Wow.
And so they said, at that moment, is this the path that you wanted to go down to?
Right.
Or do you want to sit here and address, in this jail cell, right here, do you want to address what's really been going on with you?
Wow.
Not with
Not
everybody
everybody else. Not your husband.
With you.
Not the church. Not with you.
Nobody else.
Absolutely.
You.
Absolutely.
And I'm sitting here in this jail cell. Now, this lady has rolled over and gone back to sleep.
And there you are. Right?
She's not even worried that I'm crazy enough to try to hurt her.
Yes.
She went back to sleep.
Right.
So I knew everything was just there for me to address my own issues.
Yes.
And right there, that's where I was delivered. Right there, that's where God found me.
Wow. In the cell.
In prison.
In prison.
Locked up.
Locked up.
Bound.
Right.
And what I wrote in the book is that I was really locked up before I got the handcuffs on my arms. I was already bound.
You were already in bondage.
Absolutely.
Yes. My God, my God,
Absolutely.
my God. But it took that experience
It
to
took that
release
experience for me because that's not where I want to be.
That's
That's not
That's
the place,
right.
and I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be
That's right.
suicidal. And so this is all you have left if you keep bottling all of that stuff.
Yes.
One
And
on top of
it
another.
made you do the work. It made you
Absolutely.
do the work.
Absolutely.
And what we as women, what we as leaders, just people in general, God's people and believers, we just don't want we don't want it to get to that point.
Right.
And often, as we said, because of the status, we don't address it. We know it's there, and sometimes we don't even know to what degree it's there, but we don't address it because we're afraid of what other people will think
about us.
And the problem with that is if we don't, we could find ourselves in a situation that could ruin our lives.
That could ruin our lives
And ruin other people's
everybody
lives.
else's life.
Yes. And certainly the destiny that God has for us.
Yes.
But I love what you say, clearly all things work together for the good, and this is an example. It was a horrendous situation, but even in that situation, God moved, and he moved so quickly. And so decisively and so clearly, and that really just inspired me and excited me when you were saying it didn't take long.
Didn't take long.
In that moment, you looked for God and you sought God, and then you heard God, and then you were able to make a choice. And that's even difficult because you can get into the situation, the trial and the tribulation, and then that's all you see.
Right.
Is the trial and the tribulation and the circumstance, and then we get into the pattern of doubting God. Can you talk a little bit about that, because that's hard.
It is.
We think as believers, we just say it, we're believers, but I'll tell you, and I'm going through some stuff I told you on the phone right now. When you're troubled on every side, it is hard. You have to press towards the mark of the high calling of Jesus Christ, because what the enemy is trying to do, and my bishop preached it the other day, is to doubt God. Satan only has one trick only, and that is to make you doubt God. And the more powerful you are in Christ, the more word you have in you, the more powerful your destiny is, the more you are going to affect generations. The enemy is going to come at you on every single side. And when you're in that hole, it's a lot harder.
It is.
To come out and say, to God be the glory. You know it because you've heard it, and you know that you know. But when you're in it and you're being pressed on every side, it's much harder. And I'm sure that's what you were going through.
And what God really taught me through that is the scripture says that the enemy comes to wear out the saints. What is he going to do? He's going to pile thing after thing after thing. And when he realizes that you could be in effect in the kingdom of God, then he's going to throw the kitchen sink at you.
That's right. That's right.
Keep tossing everything your way to try to distract you and cause you, because he can't kill you.
That's right.
He can't do that.
Can't do that.
And so the only thing that he can do is distract you. He can only come in and cause you to get frustrated and confused and give up. That's it.
That's it.
So he wears you out with all of these crazy things that are going on. And what I realize is we take too much time looking at all of the mess at one time instead of dealing with one issue.
And that, I'm sure that's what counseling helps with, is to help you kind of focus on issue
one thing
at a time. Overcome that, address that, give you tools to address that, and then move on to the next thing, as opposed to trying to do everything at one time. That's
we
so
have
important.
a diagram, and it's the Bible.
Yes, indeed.
It's all in there.
Roadmap.
It is already laid out for us. Every person who has been in a mess, they have come out. Faith, prayer, fasting, all of those were key. But he also tells us to seek wise counsel.
That's right, in the multitude of counsel, right?
And so we just don't do that. And when we seek them, if we seek somebody, that's why I say feeling comfortable to go outside of your church, because sometimes you can be a little more transparent.
That's right. That's right.
When it's somebody inside, you may not tell them all that you're going through.
Correct.
You may shield some of the things because you don't want to say, well, I said a bad word.
Right.
Or, it just drained me so much that I ended up drinking a glass of wine. Or I did something out of my character that you appreciate me for. You love me for being this person, but can you love me through my mess?
That's right. That's right.
And most people don't want to love you through that.
Right. And you don't want to take the chance of finding out whether or not they will or not.
So if I go outside of that comfort zone to somebody else and tell a complete stranger everything that's going on with me, they can then say, this is what you should do. Let's focus on this.
Right. And then sometimes it's not tainted by, like you said, what they think of you.
Absolutely.
So oftentimes the information that you get back is tainted by what they think of you. They don't want to hear it, and then once they hear it, the information that they give you is tainted by what they think of you. So that's critical. So we're going to break right now, and we thank you so much for being here. We're going to do 2 segments on From Behind the Podium, conversations about law and faith, conversations with Lady Darlene Hart from Behind the Makeup. Thank you.